this Insta Live because along with this pandemic, mental health experts are now warning that we are going to have what is called a shadow pandemic. That
Sorry,
is,
what say that was?
so a shadow pandemic is where people actually um, have mental health issues. America has released some data. In America, it's 1:3. That means every third person is going to have some mental health issue. I think in India, we are going to have a lot of issues, not just now, in the coming months, even when we've recovered from this, because we've had such negative experiences and it's going to be like that for us. So I think this is
So,
something, yeah.
so it's really important for people to not think that they are alone in this. You know. So I
No.
think mental, there is still so much stigma around it. There is when you know physical health and all the other issues are in on the front stage, but mental health somehow people just brush off saying it's okay. But I want you to explain how mental health is connected to everything else.
So we can't separate physical health from mental health simply because we need to understand that they're closely interrelated, and each supports the other. If you want to have uh, your immunity rise, you need to have good mental health. When we are anxious, we certain hormones that we term as happy hormones are minimized. When they are minimized, our immunity comes down. When our immunity comes down, we are more prone to getting attacked by the virus. So you can't separate the two. That is why all of us who are mental health experts are saying do not separate physical from mental health. For you must maintain physical health and you must maintain your mental health. Physical health, of course, everybody knows through physical activities. The food, kind of foods you eat, minimize caffeine and alcohol. Physical exercise, yoga. Most important, your breath, just so that your whole lymphatic system is optimized. Mental health is taking support, and just like you said, Sam, to be able to reach out and take support and expose and share your vulnerability, name whatever you're feeling, because diverse people have diverse feelings and experiences. Along with that, simple exercises that you do, which I've actually said people should do, which is, of course, journaling, uh, finding something that you find less taxing, which replenishes you psychologically. And the one that I'm encouraging people to anxiety. I know that we need to have information to keep ourselves safe and to day we consume. Why do I say that? I always tell people refrain from negative information, say after 8 p.m. in the night, because
Really
yeah,
important. Refrain
yeah.
from consumption of information of any kind uh, after 8 p.m.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the reason. Because you may be physically tired, so your body may sleep, but your unconscious is processing all this negative information that you've been absorbing. So that's why it's important.
See, when
And
you also said, Anna, that express your vulnerabilities. When you say that, I feel that there is a stark difference between how men process stress and anxiety and express that stress and anxiety, and how women process and express this. So, is this true? And
yes, yes, because in the end, we are influenced by the cultures that we've been brought up. And traditionally, in our Asian culture, men are um, taught, it's a learned behavior to express vulnerability through being angry, through being controlling, etc. Women, in that case, are taught that they should not express anger, but they should be more express sadness and grief and fear. So these are two, but they're all part of the same continuum of excessive anxiety. Now, having said that, the other thing which I say is, how are people vulnerable? For example, we keep telling people when they're talking about their vulnerability, oh, be strong, stay strong. When people are very vulnerable and they're very sad, it is the wrong thing to tell them, because you're actually telling them to bottle up all their feelings and not express what's going on with them, and that will impact their physical health and it will show up.
How would you
So
tell me this?
So when we tell people be strong or don't worry, we are actually, what we are doing is, we are not actually comforting them. We are trying to, because we can't cope with their distress. So when people are expressing vulnerabilities, or they're expressing anguish, or they're expressing sorrow, the first step is to listen to them. Pay attention to what they are saying. Some people may repeatedly express the same thing over and over again, and that expression is really because they're trying to make meaning of their stories. The second thing is, when you talk to people, when in this kind of situation, talk small, crisp sentences. Okay, it helps them.
I remember
And
you were this as well.
yeah, it
Yeah.
helps them. And the third thing which I always say is, don't give them a time that they have to recover from grief. There is no time. Each one recovers at their pace. And grief is not such a straightforward, straight line that we start here and we end here. Grief can be roundabout. Grief is gray. And people have to make meaning of that experience. So it's most important, I always say, to be with them where they are. And normally people take some time. Some people take a few months, some people take little later. If you, as a friend or a loved one, find mental health social worker,
Okay. So,
listening means to be fully present and listen to what they're saying, to the story, but focus on the feelings. The second step, as I said, is to make small, crisp, short sentences. The third thing is to actually just be with them in whatever emotional state they are. Don't tell them it's wrong or right. Why do I say that? Typically, when there is grief and loss, there are few stages that happen. People, the first thing is shock and disbelief. Then it's denial. Then it's anger. Then it's sadness. Then there is guilt. And then there is acceptance. It doesn't mean that they have to go in that order. They can skip and go back and forth. But you have to help them go through those stages, because that is how they finally recover. Once they've accepted, then they're able to move on. In this time, during this time, Sam, I'd like you to know, a lot of people suffer from particular type of guilt, and it's called survivor's guilt. If a parent has lost their young one, the question they'll ask is, why was it not me, and why them? Or if they're frontline workers, they'll repeatedly ask themselves, could I have done something more? Did I do something less? Or it can be, they will keep thinking, where did I miss out? Why didn't I notice something? So these are typical questions that people who suffer from survivor's guilt have. And when people suffer from survivor's guilt, they repeatedly keep thinking of what happened. They ruminate, which means they keep chewing and chewing and going on thinking of what happened because they are so overwhelmed. At that point, when you are going to be listening to them, it's okay to actually tell them and keep assuring them that you did your best. You did your best. Now, if they can't, then you could actually tell them, now maybe you actually write down what all you did and what all you didn't. So then they'll get clarity. In spite of that, yeah, in spite of that, if they are not able to get over guilt, then it's important that you flag it to them that they need additional support.
So, Anna, I also see a lot of anger. Um, it's There's so much anger filling my social media pages. It's I don't know. Is this a way to show pain and grief that it comes out as anger? There's a need to blame someone for what's happening. Uh, how would you explain this extreme anger that people are feeling, expressing?
I think this extreme anger, and especially on social media or trolling people or being brutal. I hear people being brutal with their words and their tone and gestures, etc. It's a form of lashing out because you know that what you actually did, because I think you are. And when you expose your vulnerability, it's the first thing. When you name it that you've taken support, you're actually telling the world that you're human, and you're therefore, when you're human, you're vulnerable. So I think the first step is that. The second step is actually in destigmatizing is that people actually don't take therapeutic support because they're mentally ill. It's not because they're mentally ill. They're taking therapeutic support or counseling support because they want how to know how to manage certain life issues more effectively. That's the reality. And the third part, which I think which is very important, is the language that we use when we are either uh, thinking about the stigma, which is language we use on how we label ourselves, or the language that we use when we are talking to people, where we uh, normalize taking support. And I give you a simple example. If you actually, you of course have shared, and I'm very, very proud of you. If you listen to heard Michelle Obama, she talks about how when she became the first lady, there was a lot of trolling about her not, being who she was, they expected. And she said how they took support.